So I'm dealing with a 2006, 2005 Lincoln Mark LT truck. It was brought to me by somebody that has had it worked on a few times for a limp home mode condition. Well, once it got towed here, after a few days, the starter decided to go out, I believe. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the path as to how we would diagnose why it won't crank. So right now I can turn the key. I hear some clicks, but nothing, right? So we're going to walk through a few things to do and see what it's going to take to fix this thing. All right, so now one of the general things I always try to do is just lock and unlock the car. Okay. Sometimes it's just the alarm that won't let it crank. That didn't do anything. All right. Now there's a neutral safety switch to where if it's not in park or neutral, the car won't crank. And I call everything a car, truck, van. I call them all cars, right? So what we can do is you can try and park, and then you can turn the key on, shift it to neutral, okay, and try it again. Still nothing. So it's possibly not a neutral safety switch. All right. Now, before we even check the battery, one of the fast checks I like to do is if the headlights are on, see them out there? Go to crank it, and if they don't dim, then usually it's either not sending the signal to the starter or the starter's bad. Because if it were a battery and you go to crank it, the lights would cut out. Okay? So those are some basic checks. Now, the next thing we're going to do is look at fuses. So the reason I'm doing it this way is I'm working my way from inside the car to outside the car, starting with the easiest, right? So I grab the owner's manual and I pull up the fuse chart, and I'm looking for starter solenoid, crank, something along that, ignition, something along those lines. So reading here, reading here, reading here. Let me know if you see it. Okay, starter solenoid. So fuse 101. All right, now let's see what else we got here. It's kind of hard doing this one-handed. Turn the page. All right, now we got more fuses. Let's see, auxiliary relay box. See what else we got. Let me go back here. There's going to be a starter relay in there too somewhere. So I got to find that. All right, so we got relays here, stop, turn lamps, memory keep alive, radio, heated mirrors. What else we got? Did I miss anything? Back one. Feel like I'm missing it here somewhere. Relays. Oh, I missed it. Yep. Dumb. Relay 1, starter solenoid. So on the other page, we got 101 and relay 1. Here's the fuse chart. There's 101 and there's relay 1. So now I got to find the fuse box and figure out if they're okay or not. All right, so in this truck, the relay panel's hiding down here by the passenger floorboard, and it's got the chart on the back of it, or just numbers, really. You got to use the manual in these. So I'm looking for the orientation of them. So here's 101, okay? And if I look, sometimes they're labeled the way that the fuse box is laid out. Sometimes they're not. So I'm looking for a relay and some fuses, where these are all fuses, to see which is top and bottom. So there's relays and fuses, so that's the top, and just fuses, that's the bottom. So I know that it's oriented that way, right? So I'm looking at 101. So it's the third one from the bottom, and it looks to be this 30 amp here. This one just kind of pulls out, and that's good. Kind of hard to see with the light, but the ring is complete. So that one's okay. So we know the fuse is okay. Doesn't mean it has power, but we know that it's okay. And then we're looking for relay 1, and that's relay 1. Be this guy here. So the fastest way to check them is I pull it out, I find one just like it, grab it, Oh, come on. Whew, slippery. Okay, and then swap it. Okay, then we can put this one where that one was at. Just have to remember where you put it in case that is bad. Then try again. Nope. Okay, well that's not it. So far, the fuse appears good and the relay is possibly good. So now we'll move to the battery voltage. All right, so right now I'm going to hook up a meter to check the battery voltage to see where we're at. And I'm actually at 12.76, so I'm good. And what I can do too while measuring this is I'm going to go ahead and crank the car just to see if it cuts out. Then I can review the video, which is a hack. If you want to do that, if you don't have a second person to help, you can record what you're doing. Now, if you don't have a meter, that's okay. One step you can do is you can also just try using the jump pack, right? Let me connect the jump pack. We got a jump pack or jumper cables, right? So I can throw this on there. Like, we know the battery voltage is good, but I'm just going through the steps that you would try, right? I hear it clicking. Okay, so I'll try it again. Nothing. So we know it doesn't have to do with battery voltage so far. Okay. You can do these in any order that you want. There is no right or wrong. I'm doing this way for video purposes, but you can do any order you wish. There's no right or wrong way. For me, it is based on what I observe. If I had lights dimming, I would go after the battery. If I don't have lights dimming, which I don't, with no lights dimming, then I'm not really concerned about the battery. I'm concerned about the power getting to the starter or the starter being bad, all right? So the next step is going to be, we're going to have to check for power down at the starter to see if that's getting power. All right, so I'm under the car, and I'm going to use this laser I got. There's the starter, okay? There's the body of the starter right here. Here's a solenoid. Here is the battery cable, goes straight to the power post of the battery. And then this is the solenoid wire that gets activated when you crank the key. So I need to check for power on that wire. Let me zoom in. So I got to check for power on this wire while the key's cranking. So I can do it one of two ways. I can do it with the test light if somebody's cranking the key, or I can use my meter and check for 12 volts and then record it, or both. I can clamp the meter to it. Clamp the test light to it. And when I crank it, I can rewatch the video after recording it to see if that's getting power. But this is what I'm going to test now. You can see it's quite corroded. The wires are quite corroded. Another thing you do is if they're cranking a key, hit the starter with a hammer. Just don't short the positive to the casing and whatnot, you know. But motors tend to seize up. So if you bang on it, it'll free it up. But that's the starter there. So that's what I'm after, to see if there's power on that wire. All right, let me show you what I did. So I'm actually going to use my meter. All right, I hooked the negative to the ground, and then I hooked the positive down to that solenoid wire. That way, when I crank the key, I should see if I get 12 volts down there, meaning battery power. All right, so I'm going to try that now. One smooth motion. Pardon my old man grunting. Come on. Really hope I didn't just lock myself out of this damn truck. Okay. All right, so I'm in here. I'm on volts. I'm going to go ahead and crank the key. There you go. Almost 12 volts. The wire's corroded, so that makes up for some of that loss, but I'm getting battery power down there, so that's it. bad starter. All right, so I've confirmed a bad starter because I have power at the solenoid wire, so I'm going to go ahead and replace the starter. What were to happen if I did not have power at that wire when cranking the key? Now I'm concerned about diagrams and wiring and authorizations and control modules to allow cranking. Not all cars work the same when it goes to crank, but these are the basics that you would check, right? So if there was no power on the wire, I would look at a diagram to see where the wire leads. It either leads back to the relay or back to the fuse box and then back to the ignition somewhere in there, right? So then I would have to trace the wiring to see what's going on there. But if I got power at the starter and it's not cranking over, the only thing I could be missing is if the engine had no ground, right? The big ground cable from the battery to the engine block, but it's grounded right there on the case. I could see it. The wire's down there, right? I mean, I would have to verify ground on the engine. That's a step 2, right? But very basic. Relay, fuse, neutral safety switch. See if there's power on the solenoid wire. You know, if you have that, then you got a bad starter, right? So no starts are pretty easy to figure out. When you get into European cars and higher end models, that's when you got to worry about values and control modules stopping the cranking, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get the starter replaced, and I'll see what happens afterwards. So wish me luck. Stay tuned. I guess I don't have to say stay tuned because it's a YouTube video, right? So I'm gonna let me. Whoop, 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 whoop. All right, I'm gonna get the starter replaced. Now, if you're curious on the steps to replace a starter, most of them are pretty easy. The newer cars are a little bit more tedious. Some suck. Some are in the middle of the engine, so you got to take off the intake and stuff to get to them. And I only say they suck because if you've never done it before, it's a lot of stuff to learn at one shot. But you definitely want to take off the negative battery cable because the positive cable leads right to the starter. And if that's dangling around, it can short out. So I'm going to disconnect the battery, and then I'm going to get down at the starter and take the cables off first, if it's easily accessible first, and then undo the bolts and pull it out. I'll try to record some of it, but working on the ground here in the garage, there's not much room for a tripod and stuff, so I'll see what I can do. All right, so first things first, going to disconnect the negative cable. We do not want to short out battery or anything the battery cables are connected to, because nowadays you can kill modules, blow fuses that are hard to find or replace. All right, so that's disconnected. So I'm going to go underneath the car and start taking the starter apart, or removing it rather. Oh, all right, this is like the best angle I can get with a camera, so pop that cap off just like that, and it looks like I got maybe a 12 mil and a 13 mil, or two 13s. Got all kinds of tools here to my left. Let's see what I got here. So let's try a 13 mil. Oh, easy camera. Let's try a 13 mil up here. Yep, that's 13. And that is not 13. So I'll try to get that battery cable loose first. Of course, it's hard finding a spot for my magnetic light. Jesus, come on. All right, this may not work out with the recording. I might have to put the kibosh on that because I gotta get this done. It's October, warm outside today, but you know how the Midwest goes. Jesus, come on. I'm moving between places, so half of my tools are in one spot, half are in the other, so I'm working old school for me. No rack, doing it on the ground. I've been babied for the last 20 years. All right. Positive cable off. I'll have to clean that up too because that's pretty corroded. All right, so 13. Let's try 11. See if that's an 11. It's an 11 or a super rusty 10. Let's see if I can get that guy loose. Nope, super rusty 10. There we go. Sometimes I worry about the solenoid stud breaking off. Actually, that may be what's happening here. Maybe not. Yep. Oh, it's actually good in a good way. Sometimes it breaks inside the solenoid. There we go. I got it off. Sometimes it breaks inside the solenoid, so the whole thing unscrews or comes loose, and then you got to get the nut off the cable. All right, so the cables are done. I got to get the negative cable off the starter over here. So let's see what I got for that guy. You can never have too many ratchets. I got a slew of different ratchets. Check out my toolbox tour. You'll see all the different ratchets I have because you can never have too many. Maybe too many of the exact same one, yeah, but not too many of all the different ones. All right, not even sure if the camera's getting all this because I can't see the video. Pretty sure my mic's still recording. Yep. I remember the first time working on cars, after a couple weeks, you realize all the muscles you don't use or you got to use to bend and twist and hold your head up so you can see what you're doing, and shoulders burning. I think I'm getting back to those days. Man, lock nuts take forever to get out. I don't have any of my electric stuff here with me. There we go. Okay. So now we got the cables all done and out of the way. So now we got the bolts that hold the starter in. Impacts and electric tools make everything so much quicker. I got so many of them 10 miles away in my toolbox. Someone asked me, why would I need a 18-inch quarter-inch ratchet? Well, here it is, buddy. Easy access to stuff. All right. Well, here it is. I jinxed myself by saying most come out pretty easy. The hard part was the way it's situated, right? Is was it like this? I think, or I'm trying to think how it was in the car. The hard part was um, the final bolt. I think it was this way. I had to get creative, and I got a 13 mil with a reducer to 1/4 inch, a couple extensions, and my Milwaukee. If you haven't used these Milwaukee ratchets, get them. They are awesome. Very, very stout. I love these things. So it was just enough to clear the starter, but then the motor mount's right here. So very tough. Very, very, very bad design. Well, bad design for mechanics. You know what I mean? Like, especially on the ground. So Ford mechanics, I give you guys props because this thing sucks, especially being here at Illinois. The rust, oh my God, the amount of rust that's on this car. So I'm gonna get the new starter and then we'll bench test it before we put it in. All right, so I got the new starter here. And what we're gonna do is look for visual accuracies, right? See how they match up, the ears, how they stick out. Okay, the solenoid, the terminals on them, where they're at. This one's busted off, but there's the one there. And then we're going to bench test it. What that means is we're going to check it right now before putting it back in the car. That way we know it works, because nothing's worse than putting it in the car and not working, and you go, oh, it must be something else. Then you waste all your time chasing a ghost when you got a bad brand new part. So usually I check these before we leave the store. Bad on me. I was in a hurry. I just grabbed it and went, but we'll check it right now and I'll show you how to check these things. All right, so here's how a starter works. The casing is grounded by touching the engine. There's a power wire that leads from the solenoid to the inside that helps spin the starter. The power wire from the battery goes here, and then the activation goes here. So basically, there's power always at the ready. Once this is activated, the solenoid kicks the starter out. At the same time, it applies power to this one, and it spins. So the solenoid is responsible for kicking it out, and the motor is responsible for spinning it. So it's a twofold, because you can have a starter clicking and not spinning, or a starter spinning and not clicking. So there's a couple different ways these can be bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. So I'm going to add power to where it should be, and then I'm going to jump the wire to the solenoid. Okay. So let me activate it. Okay. So now I got full power going, and I'm going to take this power here, and then I'm going to jump it to the solenoid wire. Ready? There we go. You might be able to see it too. Okay. So now we know the starter is good. All right, so I'm going to show you how to bench test this. I didn't like how the last one turned out, so I redid it. But I'm going to add a wire here, the solenoid activation, and just have it ready. Okay. I'm going to add power to where the battery cable would be. I'm going to add ground to the case. Turn on my jump pack. You can do this with jumper cables too. All right, activate it. Okay. Now when I jump power from here to the solenoid, just like turning the key, it kicks out. So I'll show you how it looks. Okay, so now we know the starter's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and install the new one, and then we'll check it to make sure it's good. Also, I'm going to clean up the battery cables, okay? It was hard to get the camera down there when I was rolling around the creeper. That last bolt was in a very tough spot when you're laying on the ground, so I'm just going to get it put in, and then I'll show you the video when we're all set to go, okay? All right, well, I got it installed. I cleaned up the connections with some sandpaper. Get them all scratchy and clean. Got it all tightened up. Negative cable, positive cable, solenoid wire. And now I'm going to hook up the battery and wish for the best. All right, moment of truth. starter's in, cables are clean, they're all tight. I'm in park, foot on the brake just for safety. I'll go ahead and crank it up. Oh, it's got an exhaust leak too, huh? Oh, there we go. It runs. One problem down. That wasn't even the initial concern. The initial concern was it goes into limp mode here and there. So I'm still going to have to figure that one out. All right, so I hope this video helps. The purpose of it was to show you that the path to figure out why it won't crank. Very basic. Neutral safety switch, fuse, relay, battery power, of course, connections at the battery. You want to check the ground connection too to the engine, and then also check the power wire to the solenoid. If you got power when you're cranking it and the starter's not kicking over, you got a bad starter. So I hope this video helps. Check out my channel. I do tons of reviews on things, but my main goal is to help you with information on how to do stuff and try to give you like real world experience and real world knowledge on how to do things, not just to do them, but why you do them, and then tips and tricks as to when you're doing that stuff too, right? So, hey, I appreciate you watching. Hope this helped you in some way, shape, or form. Leave me a comment if there's something I missed or something you want to add or an issue that you've had. This starter sucked, mainly because I'm on the ground. That last bolt, I had to get tricky with the connections. I'm glad I got like a plethora of extensions and sockets and ratchets and stuff, but very rusty. Illinois is very, very rusty. Not a fan at all of all the rust. But yeah, hey, got it done. Now I got to keep driving this thing to get it to go to limp mode. So the next video will be on limp mode and the cause and if I get to fix it or not, because they've had it at 4 different places. They've done fuel pump modules. They've done tune-up stuff, I believe. They've done a couple different things. I got to figure out exactly what happened to it as far as work done. But apparently it goes into limp mode randomly, and they've tried to replace stuff to fix it, what the codes pop up for, but it hasn't fixed anything yet. So that's why I got it, because I'm going to try myself to fix it, and hopefully I could get some resolve. So thanks for watching. You guys take care.